Hey everyone, this is Steve. Do you ever wonder why there are cracks that form on walls, or sometimes in a home when you're walking around, the floor feels uneven? Well, these items can be attributed to something called differential settlement. Sometimes, like you could see a crack that forms on a wall, and then if you look outside, if you could see the foundation that supports the wall, there could be a crack there. And so today we'd like to talk about differential settlement. So differential settlement is when you have a floor that has uneven settlement. So just say this side of the floor settles a little more than this side. And when you have that happen, the stress builds up in the materials that support the building. And when it reaches a point where the material doesn't have enough strength to hold itself together, it forms a crack. The crack basically releases the stress that's built up. So that's when you have a crack on a wall or on a foundation. Now, three most common things that I'd like to talk about that are causes of differential settlement are: one is heavy materials. So if you have like a heavy type of material that you put, or an item such as like a bookshelf, that could cause differential settlement if you put a really heavy bookshelf on the floor. The second is plumbing. So plumbing or puddling of water, like a leaky plumbing fixture or a leaky pipe, that causes a puddle. Or if you have any puddling around the foundation, that could cause differential settlement. And the third one that I'd like to talk about are tree roots or plants, roots from plants or any vegetation that you plant around the foundation. That sometimes certain plants can cause differential settlement. So the first item that we want to cover is heavy items. Such as any heavy item you can think of, like a bookshelf that is full height from floor to ceiling, that is fully loaded with books. That could be very heavy. And when you have that sit on a floor or a foundation, it could push the floor or foundation down. And now, the first thing I must cover is that the soil is kind of like a spring, in that when you load it, the soil would compress and sink down. So there's soil underneath your foundation. So when you load it with, say, like a bookshelf that's fully loaded, it could press down on the floor, and the floor would transfer the pressure down to the foundation, and so it would sink in that local area. So, and then sometimes when you remove the bookshelf, it's like if it's a lot of weight, sometimes like a spring, when you push it down very low, it may not bounce back to the original height. So same with the soil. So it would if you had something really heavy over it, it might leave like an imprint on the ground, so that you would feel it in that area would be a little bit uneven. And so when you have older homes, and if that home has been inhabited by many different tenants, they have their own ways of arranging their furniture and heavy items. So sometimes in an older home, you would feel that there would be dips on the floor, uneven floors, because of the loads that they put on there, and the loads come and go, and so you would feel uneven floor somewhere. And sometimes when the heavy load is next to a wall, and when the floor experiences settlement, there's some stress buildup in the wall next to that sits over the floor that's settled, so then a crack could form. The second item that could cause differential settlement is puddling of water. So when you have uneven floors underneath your house or around the perimeter of your house, the perimeter of your house should have foundation. And so when you have puddling happen, like say after a rain event, or if you have maybe like a leaky pipe somewhere, it could cause puddles, especially in areas where you have uneven floors, uneven grading. So if a puddle forms, then the water in the puddle takes longer to dry than other places. When other places dry faster, and if the soil is still moist and it's next to the foundation, the water tends to move to drier areas. So from the puddle, the water would migrate to a drier area. And also next to a foundation, since the foundation pushes down on the soil, it would create some pressure in that area to cause the water to move to areas with less pressure. And when the water moves, it takes away like small sediment inside the soil. And so over a course of time and several cycles of this puddling and drying action, I'm talking about over years, that area where it stays wet with a puddle would experience differential settlement. And then a lot of times next to a puddle, you'll see a crack on the foundation. And I've just seen so many of these homes. I've had experience inspecting homes as an engineer, as a civil engineer. I specialize in structures, and I also have seen it as a real estate agent. I help people look for homes. And when we look for a home, and then when we feel that there's uneven floors, we usually would check to see if there's an area that may be puddling around that area, the foundation. So yeah, I've just seen numerous, like so many homes, and it is very important to maintain a uniform grade around the house, a uniform grade, and you want the slope of the ground around the house to slope away from the foundation so that water cannot accumulate there. And to have a uniform grade means that no puddles can form around the foundation. So I do recommend that every house should have a uniform grade around the foundation so it doesn't puddle and so it doesn't lead to differential settlement. Also, like for houses that have a raised foundation, those sometimes when you have a raised foundation, you have a crawl space. I mean, you always have a crawl space. And that crawl space should also have uniform grading with no uneven grading, because those are areas where water can accumulate and puddle, such that sometimes when you have an older home, like a water pipe could leak, or like a drainage pipe could leak, and that could cause puddling underneath the water, underneath the inside the crawl space. And if you don't discover it soon enough, then that could cause differential settlement of the structure. And the differential settlement can cause uneven floors, and it could lead to cracks on the foundation and cracks on the wall that the foundation supports. The third item I'd like to cover is trees or plants, vegetation that you choose to plant around the house, like along outside the exterior perimeter of the house. Sometimes it's kind of linked with water leakage. Sometimes if you have a leaky pipe that you don't know about, tree roots or plant roots tend to like to grow toward the water in order to absorb water for the plant. And sometimes some plants have very strong roots, And these roots sometimes could get into the foundation area. It could grow past the foundation, and it could even lift the foundation. And when it lifts the foundation, it causes uneven floors, and then it's a real pain to have to remove that root. And when you remove the root, it creates a void in the soil, which could also cause settlement as well. That's just something that you don't really want to have to do. So I think choosing the plants or like any type of vegetation around the house, you have to be careful, I guess. And you have to. I would just recommend doing your research, and if you're not certain which plants to plant, I would recommend consulting with a professional arborist. They could probably give you more information about what kind of plants are safe to plant around the house. And yeah, so those are the 3 items that I believe are the most common in causing differential settlement. If you're ever looking at your own home, or if you're looking for a new home for yourself, and if you see cracks and if you feel uneven floors, these are the 3 items that you would think about and that you would try to look for when you're looking for a house. And yeah, hopefully that helps. Thanks for joining in, everyone, and I'll see you next time.